Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friday practice session ahead of the Chinese Grand Prix for round 3 of the 2020 GP4 Offline Championship. I am JW97, and I'm joined today by Robert Ionescu. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Joe. Thank you. Hello there. It's good to see you, and it's good to bring you guys this practice session sponsored by our glorious leader Xi Jinping.
Moving on. We are here then for the Chinese Grand Prix, and of course, last time out in Bahrain, we saw the two Mercedeses having another 1-2 finish with Amar Khan making it 2 out of 2. But of course, we saw Evan Byrne taking his first podium for 8 seasons, his first since Monaco 2012, and Renault's. The Ensto-based team's first since 2015 with David Greenwood, but I think Renault's last podium since 2010, 11, one of those 2 years.
Those two.
One of those 2 years. Somebody can correct us in the stream chat. But as you can see, we have got a dry session here for practice, so no rain expected. So I think without further ado, let's get into the half an hour practice session. Now, of course, a note to bring up as well. There are 3 test drivers in the car for this session. One of them two of them being scheduled, and the other one being a requested one. The first one, we've got Bartosz Kloss in the Ferrari in place of Loa Chung, so the Chinese fans are probably not going to be happy with that one. Lin Campana is in the Racing Point in place of Roland Motrin in this practice session, and we have the requested one being Joseph Frederick Souto is in place of Felix Sontag in the Williams. It was meant to happen at Bahrain, Joseph Frederick Souto's practice run, but of course because and for some reason Joseph Frederick Souto is German, not Slovakian. That's a mistake from you.
Well, speaking of Germany, that's where he was for the Bahrain weekend. Of course, he was competing there in GP2, so obviously he can be there for the test.
So, never mind that blunder there from Yuri. We should get the right weather for practice. It was meant to be dry anyway, so a bit of an error there with Joseph Frederick Souto's nationality there. He is meant to be Slovakian, not German. Nearly similar to what I did with George Rook a few seasons ago, where
I'm getting 1938 flashbacks here.
I don't remember what nationality I accidentally gave him. Was it a Brazilian flag? I think it was Brazilian.
Probably
by accident. It was something under those. It was something like that. It was either Brazilian or Italian. I can't remember what nationality I accidentally gave George during that Monaco practice session in 2016. So
well, if you gave him one of the two, Joe, I think you have a very good reason to call him Jorginho Roque.
I suppose. So that really. So hello everybody who was just been in the chat. We just had a little bit of a blooper there from Yuri. Joseph Frederick Souto, who's meant to take part in this practice session, had got the wrong nationality right next to him. He's meant to have the Slovakian flag next to him, but Yuri forgot to change the nationality. He had Felix's number as well. So with guys, just sorting it out, and we'll get back underway with the same weather and back with the half an hour session. But yeah, so a reminder who's in the practice session. We have got 3 test drives. We've got Bartosz Kloss in the Ferrari in place of Loa Chung. We've got Lin Campana in the Racing Point in place of Roland Motrin. And as I've just mentioned, Joseph Frederick Souto, who came in requested in place of Felix Sontag in the Williams. Now, of course, as I was about to say, Joseph was meant to be in the car in Bahrain, but because of other commitments in GP2, it had to be pushed back to China, where he would make his free practice debut. So that is what's happening right now. And of course, this is the first weekend where the free practice drivers make an appearance in this session, because we didn't have any in Bahrain, if I'm not mistaken, even outside of the GP2 drivers. So anyway, so we've got the stream back on. The problems, I would say problems, the blooper has now been fixed. So let's take 2, shall we? And Souto this time should have the correct flag. And as Franco has just corrected there, he believes it was 2010 the last time the Renault team got a podium. So not 2011, because apparently Jay and George had a disastrous season.
Yep. Yeah. In the GP4 universe, they finished 7th in the constructors. It wasn't a very good season for them, that's for sure. So we're now here. We should all have the correct flag this time by. And as you can see, we've got Amelia Wilson at the end of the pit lane. And what's going on here? As I think Rob's
the sounds are interesting from you guys at the moment.
Yeah, I'm hearing Joe in a very high-pitched tone.
It's like his microphone changed to 10 years earlier.
Yeah, is mine okay? Or
Yours okay. Yours is
Alright.
okay. And let's see what happens now.
Is it better? No?
No, it's still
no,
horrible.
it's the same.
It's still horrible. Wait. Okay, now let's see if Joe gets back. Yeah, a little bit of technical issues here.
Any better?
No, it's still the same.
Alright.
What's going on here?
Oh god, the Chinese government must have caught Joe.
Oh, my ears hurt from that screeching. That this is going really well. So we will put the practice on while we try to fix the microphones.
Yeah, okay, sure.
So we will try to commentate while this is going on.
Yeah. Do I still have any issues, Yuri, or is everything okay for me? From my end?
From your end, it's all fine.
Then give me the screen share.
Oh,
welcome back, Joe.
Now?
Now
Yeah, it's good.
Now it works.
I think I know what happened there. So let me describe to you what actually happened there. For some reason, my Discord decided to switch its microphone around. For some reason, it was trying to connect to my Bluetooth headphones rather than the blue snowball I have as a microphone. So there you go. Problem sorted. Let's get on with it. So Armar Car is the first one out on the track. And so here comes Armar Car down then. He makes his way through the left-hander. Now, obviously, of course, Carr winning last time out in Bahrain. In fact, he's won the last 2 races, it must be said, last time out. And it's fair to say it's been a very good start to the season, you'd have to say, Rob. Much better than what it has been in 2019 for Armar.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2019, he was brilliant in qualifying, but he just seemed to be a little bit off in the races. But now it looks like he's rectified that right off the bat and is looking very strong so far.
And I'll tell you what, ever since I noticed this little issue, it seems that the issue with Discord when it came to the to me hearing the gameplay audio, I had it muted. It seems to have fixed itself, so that's a good thing. So that's that really. So Armar Car is on track, and as you said, yeah, very good start to the season for Armar Car, looking to make it 3 out of 3 here in China. And of course, he has won here before in the past, back in 2018. He won here when he was driving for Ferrari. Of course, last season the race was won by Joseph Wells. Now, of course, Ferrari do actually have a streak around here in Shanghai. From 2015, they've won every race, but I think it's fair to say, Rob, it's probably going to be a little bit tricky for them to try and continue that streak this season.
I think they're gonna need a miracle.
Yeah, they probably do indeed. Well, you never know, of course. I mean, given how much the midfield seems to be getting into that podium scrap this season, if anything ever happens to the Mercedes this season, maybe even the Red Bulls at a push, you never know, of course. Something could happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Could happen, and maybe Ferrari's streak could continue, but who knows, really. But anyway, of course...
It's going to be a very tough ask anyway.
Will be a very tough task indeed for both Laura Chung and of course Roberto Gamba. Laura Chung, of course, who is this is of course her home Grand Prix and hoping to put on a show for the Chinese fans. Now, another thing, of course, who was probably happy with Bahrain is of course Evan Byrne. We touched upon it just before the show, of course. Of course, after 8 years away from the podium, Evan made his way back onto the top 3 places, and he has come close on a couple of occasions in previous season, but finally he was able to end his podium drought.
Well, better late than never, and Evans got every single reason to be proud of himself for that result. I think he did very well in Bahrain, and if everything aligns in his favor, he could get 2 podiums in a row here in China. We'll see.
we'll have to wait and see, of course. But of course, Franco Lopez, who has taken pole in the last two races, of course, has not been able to get a victory so far this season. The defending champion comes into this race 13 points behind Armar. Some people are already saying that it's going to be a battle between Carr and Lopez for the World Championship. And who knows, they might be right, as Lopez is still trying to find his way through on the manor here of Rosetta Martinez. Rosetta Martinez, of course, who had quite a decent outing in Bahrain last time, only just missing out on the points. But it seems to say that Manor have had quite an okay start to the season, it must be said.
Yeah, definitely. Both drivers have, even though they've had some lows, they've definitely been very impressive. Had their highs at some point, as now Wilson is being overtaken by Bartosz Kloss in the Ferrari.
Kloss, of course, who is in the place of Laura Chung in this practice session. We'll see Laura Chung back in time for qualifying, but we've got some lap times on the board. Armar Carr doing a 1:32.794, 5 tenths quicker than Kupok. Gallo only managing third that time by ahead of Wales. Franco Gamba, meanwhile, has gone into second position as Martinez has a
lockup
big
for
lockup
Martinez in turn 1.
Going into that corner, and Gal might try and find a way past him, but he doesn't, as Roque goes into third. Roberto Gamba goes into fifth position, and so Martinez is now currently holding up Gal as we speak at this point in time.
You don't want to miss that turn 1 apex. You're going to lose so much time, and you can see Martinez is 1.3 seconds off his personal best already.
Yeah, indeed. Franco Gamba, who I was just touching upon before we got to Martinez. Franco is once again running the Valentino Rossi helmet that he wore last week. Of course, Valentino Rossi, as you know, a legendary MotoGP rider who recently just retired, I think a couple of weeks ago now, in Valencia. And, of course, he's left his mark on the sport and pretty much a happy return to Valentino. But he is keeping it for this race, but in Zandvoort, he has said he will be reverting back to his normal helmet. Of course, Zandvoort being the first time for the top class that we will be racing there. It'll be very interesting to see how the top class drivers cope around the circuit Zandvoort in the Netherlands. Of course, the next two races are all going to be new tracks for the top class. So,
yep, indeed. We've had those venues in GP2 in the past few years, and they've put on some pretty good shows. Portugal last season wasn't that fantastic because Dudu Corby absolutely dominated. Credit to him. But yeah, Zandvoort can be very, very entertaining. I remember the 2018 race was very dramatic and played a big role in the championship in the end.
Meanwhile, on the racing points there, just getting behind De Rosa, a very shiny racing point, I should point out as well.
Lopez has gone to second, meanwhile.
Yep, it's now 1-2 for the Mercedes, with Lopez being just under 2 tenths behind Carr. But yeah, for Lopez, as we've seen, he has been a little bit frustrated with these first two races. He's obviously had the pace to win, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened. And Armar Carr has just been there to to take all the glory.
Lopez did an exceptional job doing the title last season. But you can't rest on your laurels. You need to be working hard into the next one. And I'm not going to say Lopez hasn't been working hard. He clearly has been. Armar Carr was able to work just that little bit harder to give him the edge.
Absolutely. As me speaking of which, we're right on board with Carr there. We now look at Jake Galloway, and you have to say, apart from Evan Byrne, who was definitely celebrating thanks to that podium, Galloway also had a very good race in Bahrain. It was a very good race for both Renaults. Galloway finishing 7th, getting his first ever points in the top class, and so far, a good start to the season for Renault.
Yeah, indeed. They came in good fashion, and Galloway has done well there in his GP2 days. I think he'll be very, very pleased with that result, as now we have Gamba trying to make an overtake on Martinez.
Yep, his teammate's already done that, and now it's Gamba's turn to try and get through, and he's having to get back in the slipstream to see if he can try and outbrake him into the hairpin, where we expect to see most of the overtakes being done this week, of course. Maybe down at turn 1 if you're lucky as well, as we ride back on board with the current championship leader of Armar Cars. We now flick to Dudu Kirby, who's trying to get by on one of the manners there. That would have been Amelia Wilson, as Franco Gamba there locking up whilst he's trying to get by Martinez. Still not able to do so at the moment, and isn't able to improve, not just because of the lockup, but also because of the hold up there from Martinez.
Yeah,
as they make their way through. I think that right-hander is classed as 2 separate corners, if I'm not mistaken, on the track map. For whatever reason, it's kind of like NASCAR, really, where they count one curve as like 2 corners.
Yep, indeed. And also the upcoming left-hander also counts as 2 corners. I know that very well because the hairpin at the start of Sector 2 is always marked as turn 6, so there you have it. The first turn is actually 2 turns, the second turn is actually 2 turns as well.
To check up on how the test drivers are doing, Bartosz Kloss is currently 8th at the moment in the Ferrari. We've got Lean Campana down in 15th at the moment in the Racing Point, and Jose Frederic Souto in the Williams in 20th position, just behind his teammate for today, Jamie Griffiths. As meantime, Carr wasn't able to improve by 7/10 of a second. Now, the tyres we're using for this race is the medium tyres, so that means for the first 3 races we've had a different compound, so they've all been cleared up. It's not like back in 2018 where we were all kind of pressing on for a super hard tyre to make an appearance.
Well, we got that one in the end, but yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So obviously we've just had the 3 compounds now, which seems to be obviously work out better. As Garber, will he get by Martinez this time by? And yes, he will. So it will be interesting to see how the medium tyres fare around here. Of course, last time out, judging from the degradation of the hard tyres, it was the one stop clearly was the way to go, as Amar Khan was able to prove. So with these medium tyres, you probably could be looking at probably a 2-stop could work out. We'll have to wait and see, of course.
Well, this track is more high speed than Bahrain, and tire degradation matches it to boot. It's quite high. So the mediums, as Wilson has been overtaken now, with the mediums I think it's definitely going to be a 2-stop, and some people could be struggling here if they're left out to dry on the 1-stop.
Look back now at Amar Khan, who's just making his way down the back straight before heading his way down towards hairpin. As now we look back at Griffiths, who's now trying to get by on, I believe this is Wilson, he's trying to get by. And he's coming back into the pits this lap, is the Welshman. Jamie, you'd have to say, has performed pretty well in the Williams this season, although last time out he wants to forget Bahrain, given that he had a crash with David Kupok, which, speaking of which, of course, David Kupok does have a 5-place grid penalty for this race, so wherever he ends up in today's qualifying session, he will drop 5 places back. But overall, he's had quite a decent debut, you'd have to say, Rob.
Yeah, I agree.
Nothing to add there?
Not really.
Okay, as we
I
now
didn't
look
watch
at
the races in full, I only watched some parts. So yeah, but I think Griffiths has an alright job.
Martinez, we just rode on board there, just made a little bit of an error going through into the right-hander there, so not the best. Obviously, this lap has obviously gone down the bin for Martinez, but he wouldn't care that much, I don't think, because, of course, this is obviously not the qualifying session. This is, of course, the practice session. Last time out, speaking of Manor, of course, Wilson was able to qualify in 14th position, so obviously that's Manor's best result this season. Overall, I don't think it's their best one, because, of course, in 2016, they had some great results in qualifying as well, as Carr is coming back into the pits this time by, and I think he'd be pretty happy with those sets of runs, it must be said as well. But currently, as meanwhile, the two Mercedes have now just been split actually by George Roque, who's only 400ths off of Carr at the moment, so he gets up into 2nd place now, does George Roque. So you have to say as well, judging from George Roque, he's on a fantastic start to the season, it must be said, and he has so far had the better of his teammate in race trim, that is. Yeah,
absolutely, so. And Roque, I think he'll be aiming for that podium soon enough. Obviously, Ron Monchin got that front row start in Bahrain, but I think George Roque just wants to prove he can do better than him. And who knows, he could be on the podium soon enough.
Yeah, who knows, really. I think it's also safe to say as well that in qualifying trim, it's definitely clear that Roland has definitely got the edge on George in qualifying, but it's clear that in the races, George has just got that little bit more of an edge on Roland at this point in time, and that's obviously something that Roland will definitely need to work on as well.
Well, we've only had two races so far, so it's a little bit early to say. Sure, it could be 2-0 up for Roland in qualifying now and 2-0 up for George in the races now. But let's say in about 4 races time, it could be all the other way around. So it's a long season. Plenty of things can happen. As Campana has gone up into P4 in that second racing point.
And now he finds himself the highest test driver in the field. So the top 4 at the moment, consisting of both Mercedes and Racing Points, or 4 Mercedes, if you want to say.
And then the rest of our top 8 consists of 4 Red Bulls, I'd say.
Yeah, this is correct, actually.
Oh, no, Roberto Gampa is not in Red Bull, my mistake.
Oh, yeah, I just realised that myself. I just made the error there myself. I just realised that both Gambas are in the top 7 at the moment, Franco being ahead of Roberto at this point in time. And for Franco, you'd have to say it's not been the best of starts for him this season. Of course, a comfortable third looked likely on the cards in Australia until the mechanical failure put pay to that, and then he kind of dropped the ball a bit in Bahrain.
Yeah, I think Franco is a bit frustrated about what's happened so far this season. Bad luck has plagued Red Bull quite a while in the last few years, particularly in 2017, of course. But I think he can do a better job this time around in China. I think we could see him in the top 5 and maybe even fighting for the podium places.
We will see, of course, Franco making a joke there saying, Massey, can you please check those racing points? I don't know what you're talking about there, Franco. As we now look at Martinez, who's currently holding up a train of cars at the moment, one of them being a McLaren, that being Kirishima De Rosa. And you have to say, speaking of McLaren, it's not been the best of starts to the season for them, it must be said. I mean, testing looked a little bit shaky for them, but it seemed that they got the mojo back in before the season started. But it seems that in the races, they've just been caught up with a lot of bad luck.
Yeah, indeed. Willows was involved in that crash in Bahrain, and in a corner I don't think he particularly wanted to have crashed in 2020. But yeah, I think McLaren have left some cards at the table, whether willingly or not, and clearly they're a team that has things to prove and will want to regain their good form that they had last year. As Byrne has been passed by the Ferrari, meanwhile.
I believe that was Roberto Gamba who just passed him there. Roberto Gamba, of course, finished 4th last time out in Bahrain. You'd have to say, I think to a surprise of pretty much everyone, he's so far had the measure of Chung this season.
Well, Laura Chung was very quick in the Ferrari last season, which was a very quick car, but the car this season is a completely different beast, and I'm afraid she hasn't been able to get used to it as well as her new teammate. Roberto Gamba, even though the car is slow, he can extract some good pace out of it.
Yep, indeed, and we find the Gambas now together as Franco has now just got by. And I believe that was, I think that was Evan Burney just passed there. I'm not 100% sure. As Gomez, meanwhile, gets up into 15th position, 3 thousandths ahead of Andrea Videri at this point in time. As Galloway makes his way through the hairpin. We ride on board with Campana in the very shiny Racing Point, it must be said. And he just comes out the corner there. He just made a little lockup we just saw there at the hairpin. But he finds himself currently in 4th position. Of course, Campana losing out on a drive last season was very ambitious, you'd have to say, with his choices, putting Racing Point as his first choice, and then finding out that George and Roland got confirmed in the first week of the silly season that they'd be retained, and given that Williams, whilst he put them second in his choices, were ahead of Racing Point in the pick order, it kind of messed him up in a way. So that's why he's not in the top class this season, and that's why he's competing in DTM for this season, and he'll be looking to see if he can have a good season.
Yeah, the pick order can be very deceptive at times, but it's highly important when you sign up that you keep that in mind and make sure you don't make choices that would pretty much wreck your sign up. I think Campana might have got the seat if he was a little bit smart of his choices, but I'm not going to put the blame on him. It's a little bit unfortunate that he's out of the drive this season, but there's no reason to say he won't be back next year. If he does well enough in DTM, I think he'll definitely be back, as Bartosz Klos has improved on his time.
He has indeed, as we ride on board with Jake Galloway, who's coming back into the pits this time, guys. We have just under 15 minutes to go. 14 minutes to go, I should say, in this practice session.
Yes.
As Galloway now then makes his way down towards the hairpin very soon. And we'll be seeing him go straight on into the pits once we come out of this corner he's coming up to. As Roke is also coming into pits. As meanwhile, Carr has improved. He now finds himself 4 tenths ahead of Roke. He's now on a 1:32.344, so a big improvement there from the current championship leader. Suto makes a bit of an error on the exit there and gets, in fact, overtaken by one of the Red Bulls who just overtook him there. I'm not sure which Red Bull it was. But there we go, as we continue to ride on board with Jose Frederic Suto as he makes his way through the double left-hander. Now, unlike the silver version of the Mercedes, which never was made available for Grand Prix 4, the original Mercedes livery before they changed the colour scheme for the rescheduled season. Of course, as people brand it, the Colgate Williams, the one that looks like toothpaste, that is available on Grand Prix 4. I don't think the download league's available for it anymore, but I still have that Colgate Williams car. So,
well, speaking of it, Griffiths has just improved to go up to 17th.
He has indeed, and went from Colgate to Sensodyne Pro Relief, you could say, with the liveries. So, as we ride on board with his teammate Suto. But I do have that livery still available, I believe. So, if Felix and Jamie are interested in running it for one race, can do if they want to. That's up to them if they want to. But that's that. So Videri now then goes around the left and right-hander as they come around long sweeping right hand. He's 1.7 seconds down at the moment. But Videri's had quite a decent start to the season, must be said. Obviously, picked up that brilliant 6th place finish in Australia. Finds himself currently 8th in the championship. Of course, we only had 2 races. But given how off the pace Alfa Romeo looked in testing, they seem to be coming out of it pretty okay at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. I don't know what exactly they've done to turn the work up, but it's definitely not going as bad as they would have feared.
Indeed, as we ride back on board with Joseph Frederick Suto, who makes his way through the left and right-hander now then. And currently finding himself in 20th position, his teammate 17th at this point in time. Of course, Suto competing in GP2 this season. If I'm right in saying, Rob, he finished 8th in the first race, if I'm not mistaken. I think he did finish in the points.
Yeah, he did score points. His teammate did as well. I believe he was in P9 actually, or P8, one of the two. By the way, he did all right on his debut.
Chatfield and Fraser and Griffiths have had improvements, as has Wilson, so we're seeing some more improvements coming the way. Chatfield went up to 13th and Fraser went up to 14th there. Wilson up to 20th as a result of her improvement to get herself above Jose Frederick Suto. Ironically, the driver who she had a rivalry with in Formula E last season, which she was able to win nab the championship off of Joseph in the end. And so that's that, really. So kind of a battle for 20, if you could say, between the two former Formula E rivals. Speaking of which, Suto crosses the line. I don't think he's on an improvement, and no, he's not.
No,
4.6 seconds off. Probably was just getting a mileage run for the team, and also getting some running in a top-class car as well. Is Suto. 11 laps. You were just informing us there that he's done 11 laps on these sets of tyres, these sets of mediums that he's currently on. So a very long run, you'd have to say, for Suto. Definitely gathering a lot of data for the Williams team. I guess doing what a test driver is meant to do. So as he makes his way through the long swooping left-hander there. So currently this is what the leaderboard looks like then. It's Carr currently at the top with Roque in second, Lopez third, Campana fourth, Franco Gamba in fifth with Kupok in sixth, then it's Roberto Gamba in seventh, Gal in eighth, plus ninth, De Rosa 10th, Willows 11th, Byrne 12th, Chatfield 13th with Fraser 14th, Galloway in 15th, Gomez 16th, then Videri 17th, Griffiths 18th, Kirby 19th, Wilson in 20th with Suto in 21st, and Martinez currently in 22nd and last at this point in time. As Fraser, meanwhile, has got up into 13th as I was speaking there, so he gets himself above Chris Chatfield that time by. So big improvement.
Not bad in the Haas.
Yeah, indeed. It's safe to say that Daniel has been showing some good pace on one lap pace in that Haas, despite the fact that the Haas seems to be off the pace at the moment, and the fact that the team are currently last at the moment in the Constructors' Championship just shows how much their team has fell compared to 2018, you'd have to say.
Yeah, definitely. They've been struggling lately. 2019 didn't go quite to plan, and in 2020, if there's anything to be certain about, is that they've lost their old shine, I guess, Haas, and I think they'll be praying go for some miracles in the fantasy era, because we know the performances of the cars for the real life seasons, but starting next season, everything gets thrown out the window. We have no idea. Haas could be the fastest car in a few years' time. Who knows? But yeah, Haas at the moment, they're at the lowest of their low, and they'll be hoping they can bounce back soon.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, Rob referring to there the fantasy era, which starts from next season. And obviously exciting times ahead for the OC, especially given that we won't know what the performance of each of the cars are going to be. So should be interesting. And of course, there's still this mystery surrounding on who the 11th team is going to be, the team that's going to replace Manor. Hopefully we will get an announcement, hopefully in the new year, I'm going to presume. So Suto, meanwhile, just making his way around the double left-handers. Meantime, Jake Galloway gets up into the top 10. He's made a big improvement there to get himself up into 10th position. He's currently ahead of his teammate now, Evan Byrne, who finds himself down in 13th. Only 11th and 12th for the two McLaren drivers. So the Renault-powered teams, 10th to 13th at this point in time. So not quite on the pace in practice, but as I said, it's only practice. It's not quite the real deal yet. They could be holding back something for qualifying, as we have now just under 8 minutes to go in this practice session before we get on to qualifying in just around 8 minutes time. So maybe a little bit later than that. So
if I can add, in my opinion, I think people shouldn't look too much into practice. It can be an indicator, sure, but let's remember this is GP4. You can be fastest in practice and then end up much slower when you get to qualifying. So yeah, being fast in practice can be good, but don't think too hard into it.
As now we look at Franco Gamba now, then he makes his way towards the right, and then I think he just made a little mistake we just saw there down at turn 3 there, so this lap probably in the bin already for Gamba, who finds himself at the moment in 5th position. As meantime, Martinez has got up into 21st, so that pushes Suto now down into the last position. The whole pack separated now by 2.9 seconds, and in fact Suto, after many laps on those medium tyres, is coming back into the pits, as is Armar. Those two are coming back in to the pits this time by. As we now look at Videri, who is currently in where is he at the moment? Currently in 17th position, just behind his teammate Gomez, 3,000 behind to be exact. Kirby, meanwhile, has improved but remains in 19th position, so staying where he is at this point in time. Still off compared to his teammate Daniel Fraser at this point in time, as Videri finds himself 4/10 down on Ko in the first sector and down on his personal best at the same time. Suto, we're riding on well with. He's coming back into the pits this lap, as we just said.
And, Joe, there is something we haven't actually quite touched on yet today, and I think it's good we talk about it before qualifying. What are your thoughts in this track in particular?
I don't personally mind the track, and so yeah, I don't particularly mind it, to be honest with you. I know it's a bit of a hit and miss when it comes to racing, really, but I personally don't mind it. I mean, it's had some good races. I mean, 2006, I mean, that was because it was wet, but if we're talking dry races, I mean, 2016, that was a good race. 2018 was a good race. There's problems for Q-Park. He's got a mechanical failure, as you can see on the top of his death panel there, and it is a gearbox issue for David Q-Park. So a mechanical failure.
Over right away.
For the German, of course, Q-Pop does have a 5-place grid penalty for qualifying that we need to bear in mind, but straight away, his weekend here in Shanghai has not got off to the best of starts.
Better to get those mechanical problems out of the way early in practice. That way, hopefully, we won't have any for the race. Could be a bad omen also. Meanwhile, Federi has improved to got in 14th place.
Yep, indeed, as the Marshal now goes into tow.
But on the topic of interesting... on the topic of interesting races here, I'd also have to add 2013 and 2014, which were the first wins for both myself and Armarka. Both races were quite entertaining.
Roman Quag, you mean?
Roman Quag, sorry, not Armarka.
I'm going to say Armar got his first win in Baku.
Yeah, it was Roman Quag, my bad.
He then had a 3-year streak before Franco Lopez broke it last season. So
yeah, but I took my first victory here. Roman Quag took his first victory here. So who knows? Maybe someone could take his first victory in 2020. Though that could be a little bit more unlikely, but we'll see. Maybe Roberto Gamba can pull it off somehow.
Well, we did touch upon the fact that Mercedes have not won here for the past 5 seasons, and who knows? That might. In fact, I don't think they've ever won here in China, have they? Mercedes have never won here in Shanghai, to be honest with you. So maybe this season could be different for them. We'll have to wait and see. And
I think if you're a neutral fan, you'll hope the streak continues. But Mercedes are clearly the strongest team, and they'll want to put it to an end.
Yeah, indeed. As we now look at George Roque, who's back out on the track, currently up on his personal best at this point in time. Finally finds himself in 2nd position, and who knows, really, given the pace of this racing point, and if anything ever happens to the Mercedes, we might see George Roque back on the top step of a podium one day. Who knows?
Well, it's definitely going to be possible, but it's going to be up to him, of course, to maximize the opportunities he's going to get.
Indeed, as we ride on Warwick Gal, who's currently up on his personal best at the moment in the 2nd sector. But at the moment, Gal finds himself down in 8th position at the moment. His teammate Franco Gamba up in 5th at the moment. As now Gal makes his way towards the hairpin. Of course, this is the second race of 11 races this season that the real life 2020 season didn't actually race on because of a certain virus that was going around. Not quite sure what it was. Byrne, meanwhile, makes a huge mistake. In fact, gets it all completely wrong there. Oh, he
almost
collided there
with Franco Gamba.
Yeah, it's his teammate Gal. Speaking of Red Bulls, Gal got up into 6th that time. But yeah, huge mistake there for Byrne.
That's a very unusual corner to go off at. It's not that difficult to negotiate. Either way, I've been burned a little bit too trigger happy on the brakes, and yeah.
And he nearly collected Franco Gamba for good measure there. That nearly ended in tears. But yeah, you can see there, huge lockup for the Irishman there, and he ended up dipping it into the gravel as a result. And Gamba, probably lucky that he wasn't collected there. He probably will need a change of undercrackers after that one, but there we are.
Yeah, probably. In any case, there is time for him before qualifying, so I think he will get his priorities in order. But look how close this was. Had to go off his line.
Thought it was meant to be the Rossi helmet, Yuri, from what I understand, by the way. Oh, okay. Well, that one will get sorted before qualifying then. So, that's that really is. Burns still getting a little bit twitchy even after he's been off there. So probably having some problems with that car as we speak. As we now look at Mikolas Gal, meanwhile, with just over 3 minutes to go in this session, and but he's now finds himself down on his personal best in the first sector. He's got, in fact, both Mercedes behind him at this point in time. And Gal currently in third in the championship at the moment, but I think he'll probably feel that he feels like there should be a little bit more in this Red Bull to try and get onto the Mercedes.
Yeah, definitely possible. The Red Bull may not have the edge in straight line speed where the Mercedes clearly excels, but they do have some pretty good downforce that almost matches it, I'd say. And China has loads of fast flowing corners. The Red Bull could take advantage, of course. Sure, there is that big straight that he's going at the back of right now, but Miklos Galch and his teammate Franco Gamba should put that car to good use, and they should be close enough to Mercedes, I think.
Well, of course, being a previous winner here in Shanghai, having won here in 2009, probably looking to see if he can try and get his second victory here in Shanghai, but it might be a bit difficult with given how quick the Mercedes are currently at the moment. But he rounds the final turn at this point in time.
Well, I won here in a Lotus, so never say never.
Yeah, true. As Gal crosses the line and he does not improve, and he's going back into the pit, so that will be his runs done with due to how much
Lopez now goes. Behind him.
Lopez goes to the top of the timing sheets by 89 thousandths of a second. He's on a 1:32.255. So Lopez,
I reckon he picked up a little bit of toe there from the Hungarian.
Is that actually Lopez behind, or is that Carr? I'm not sure. That's Carr that's behind him. Lopez is the one that's behind Carr. Meanwhile, Chatfield goes up into 9th position at this point in time, so he gets an AlphaTauri. Both AlphaTauris, I should say, into the top 10. As Kupok has got into the spare car, by the way. That's why there's no pit indicator next to his name. So he's out on track in the spare car. And Carr makes his way through the long, swooping right-hander. Everyone making his way through the double left-hander on the track now then, as we are into the closing stages of this practice session, as we now ride on board Franco Gamba. Is he going to improve on this lap? And no, he's not. He's way off. And Byrne is also way off as well. We now look at Griffiths coming out the final turn in the Williams, and not expecting this to be an improvement either. And no, it's not. Suto across the line, no improvement for him as Wilson starts her lap, as Martinez is going back into the pits.
You were speaking of rivalries between those two earlier on. They're racing each other on track right now. As Andrea Federi's we're on board with him finishing his lap.
Yep, coming around the final turn now then, as we have just under a minute to go now in this session. We're into the closing few seconds of this practice session now then. Federi crosses the line, no improvement for him. Here's his teammate, Gabriel Gomez. Heading down the pit straight now then, and what can the Brazilian do? And he doesn't improve. Carr, meanwhile, he remains in second as Lopez doesn't improve on his current fast time, as Galloway makes his way down the pit straight, currently in 11th position, and he remains in 11th position. Kirby crosses the line, no improvement for him either, as we look at Roberto Gamba making his way through the final turn.
Yes, and across indeed. The line. Here goes the Ferrari man.
Across the line he goes, and no improvement for him, as Chatfield doesn't improve either. His teammate Kupok in the spare car doesn't improve either, as we look at Willows now then, who comes out of the hairpin now then. He along with the driver behind him may be the last ones to cross the line. We will see.
So it seems.
Willows with a few seconds left on the clock, crosses the line, and he does not improve. Remains where he is. In fact, Fraser was going back into the pits, and the checkered flag is now out, so Willows was the last one to cross the line.
Byrne will finish his lap. I don't think he's going to improve. The guys with the medium tires, they don't appear to be able to improve later on in the run. It's only going to be the first lap that's going to count, really, as Byrne actually did get past Gamba.
Yeah, and neither of them improved at the same time. Griffiths now then makes his way down the pit straight, and no improvement for him. Suto, no improvement for him. He finishes last in this session. Wilson remains in 20th. Here comes Federi now then, coming out of the hairpin, making his way towards final turn.
We'll be expecting his teammate Gomez behind him shortly enough, but here goes Federi to finish his lap and round off his practice session.
Across the line then goes the Italian, and no improvement for him. And in fact, I think Gomez has already just finished, in fact.
Well, so is Armarca, but Lopez is now crossing the line.
Lopez crosses the line, no improvement for him. Gomez does not improve either. Look like the two Mercedes has actually got past him during that run. There's Galloway now then, comes across the line himself, and no improvement for him. Kirby across the line, no improvement for him either. As we now look at Chris Chatfield, out of the final turn, he will now go in the AlphaTauri, heading down pit straight, and across the line he will now go. And he does not improve. Roberto Gama doesn't improve either. Q-Park, meanwhile, no improvement for him as well. As the last person, of course, to cross the line. He doesn't look like he's on improvement, so not the best of sessions for both McLarens, being 12th and 13th. Out of the final turn, then goes Willows, making his way onto the pit straight. And let's see, will he get some miracle in the last sector? And no, he won't. So there you go, that's practice done with, and it's Lopez who finished fastest, with Carr in second and Roque in third. So what do you make of that session overall, Rob?
I think usual suspects there in the front too, but Racing Point doing very, very well with Rogue.
Yep, indeed. Well, we're just going to take a little pause for the moment, guys. We'll set up a fresh stream for the qualifying session. But for the meantime, I've been JDoing97. He's been Rob, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session. See you in a bit.
Yeah, see you guys.